In the far reaches of the Orion frontier, humanity had a reputation, and not a good one. Across the Galactic Coalition, humans were seen as weak, emotional, and reckless. The Zorvax called them fragile primates. The Vectari laughed at their short lifespans. Even the proud Elorians, known for their ancient wisdom, saw humans as children playing with weapons too dangerous for them to understand. Whenever war councils were held, human representatives were ignored. Whenever tactical simulations were run, human units were placed at the bottom. And whenever the coalition faced a real threat, humanity was assigned supply duty, medical backup, or evacuation support, never the front lines. That was how it had always been. Then came the Carrick swarm. They arrived like a storm of living metal, consuming colonies, tearing through battle fleets, and leaving whole star systems in silence. Their ships were fast. Their weapons adapted. Their numbers never seemed to end. One by one, the great races of the galaxy fell back. Coalition bases were destroyed. Defensive lines collapsed. Entire armadas were wiped out in hours. At the fortress world of Draxos 9, the last major coalition defense was assembled. Thousands of ships. Millions of troops. The best commanders from 100 worlds. And among them was a single human soldier, Sergeant Elias Forn. No one noticed him at first. Why would they? He wore standard armor, scarred from too many battles, and carried old human equipment most alien officers considered outdated junk. He was assigned to a secondary trench line with a small mixed-species unit of survivors, rookies, and soldiers nobody expected to last the first assault. When the alien troops saw him checking his rifle, one Vectari lieutenant smirked. "Let me guess," he said. "You humans plan to win with courage, speeches, and stubbornness?" A few nearby soldiers laughed. Elias looked up calmly and said, "No." The lieutenant raised an eyebrow. "Then what?" Elias locked the rifle into place and replied, "We plan to win because we don't quit." The laughter grew louder. Above them, warning sirens screamed. The Carrick had arrived. The sky over Draxos 9 turned red as the Carrick descended. Their drop pods slammed into the ground like meteors, sending dirt and metal into the air. Seconds later, the battlefield erupted into chaos. Coalition artillery opened fire. Plasma beams crossed the horizon. Alien tanks rolled into position. The first defensive line held for 8 minutes. Then it vanished. The Carrick adapted faster than expected. Their armored bodies reflected energy fire. Their drones slipped through shield gaps. Their heavy units smashed through barriers like paper. Soldiers who had trained for decades panicked as everything they knew failed in real time. Elias and his trench unit watched survivors stumble back from the front line. "They broke the first wall. They're inside the defense grid. We need orders." But orders never came. Their command tower had already been hit. Around Elias, fear spread fast. A young Elorian scout dropped her weapon, whispering that the battle was lost. A Zorvax heavy trooper shouted that retreat was the only option. Others looked toward the landing pads, hoping to run before the Carrick reached them. Elias stood up on the trench edge and looked toward the incoming swarm. There were thousands, maybe more. He took one deep breath, then turned to the others. "Listen to me," he said. Nobody moved. "If you run now, they'll hunt you in the open. If you stay here, you have cover, ammo, and a chance." A Zorvax snarled. "A chance? Against that?" Elias nodded. "Yes. Because they think like machines. They expect fear. They expect retreat. So we give them the one thing they won't predict." The Elorian looked at him. "What is that?" Elias slammed a fresh magazine into his rifle. "Humans." He started moving before anyone could answer. He ran down the trench line, repositioning weapons, redirecting explosives, stacking spare ammo, and reactivating abandoned turrets by hand. He ordered the scout to high ground, the heavy trooper to the choke point, and the medics to reinforce the inner wall. His voice cut through the panic like steel. And slowly, unbelievably, the unit obeyed him. When the first Carrack beasts crashed into their sector, they were not met by a broken defense. They were met by Sergeant Elias Vorn. He fired first. Then the entire trench opened up with him. The Carrack hit like a tidal wave. One after another, their creatures slammed into the trench. Blades clashed with plasma. Turrets overheated. Smoke swallowed the battlefield. Soldiers screamed over the comms as the line bent, but did not break. Elias moved through the fight like a man who had already accepted death and decided to make it expensive. He planted mines with his own hands, dragged wounded soldiers back into cover, and picked targets faster than enemy drones could adapt. When one section of the trench collapsed, he sealed the gap with explosives. When a heavy Carrack unit leapt over the wall, Elias climbed a burning turret, launched himself onto its back, and drove a shock blade into its core. The nearby alien troops stared in disbelief. This wasn't how humans were supposed to fight. Humans were supposed to be weak. But Elias kept going. At one point, the Vektari lieutenant, the same one who had mocked him earlier, was pinned beneath fallen debris as 3 Carrack drones closed in. His weapon was gone. His armor was cracked. He thought he was dead. Then a burst of rifle fire shattered the drones. Elias appeared through the smoke, bleeding from one arm. "You still laughing?" Elias asked. The lieutenant could only stare. Elias helped him up and shoved a sidearm into his hand. "Good. Then shoot." Together they rejoined the line. Hours passed. The trench was now a graveyard of steel, ash, and broken Carrack bodies. Coalition reinforcements still hadn't arrived. Command was still silent. Every scanner said the same thing. Enemy numbers increasing. The Elorian scout crawled toward Elias, exhausted and shaking. "Sergeant, we can't hold forever." Elias looked across the field. "No," he said quietly. "But we can hold long enough." "For what?" He looked toward the distant mountains, where the last civilian transports were lifting off. "For them." In that moment, the entire unit understood. This was no longer about winning the battlefield. This was about buying time. And if the galaxy's greatest armies had failed, then humanity's most dangerous trait had finally arrived. The willingness to stand anyway. As the final wave approached, the defense line was nearly gone. Ammo was low. Turrets were dead. Half the trench was on fire. Above them, the Carrack command vessel descended through the clouds, preparing to wipe out the last resistance in one strike. Elias checked his gear. 1 rifle, 1 sidearm, 3 grenades, and 1 damaged field beacon. The Vektari lieutenant saw what he was doing and stepped closer. "What is that?" "A human targeting beacon," Elias said. The lieutenant frowned. "For what weapon?" Elias gave a grim smile. "A very old one." He looked at the remaining soldiers around him, alien and human alike. Tired, injured, terrified. Then he pointed toward the command vessel. "I need 60 seconds. The Zorvak's heavy trooper growled. "That ship is shielded," Elias answered. "Not from the inside." Before anyone could stop him, he climbed out of the trench and charged straight into the swarm. Enemy fire followed him across the battlefield. He dodged, rolled, fired, and kept moving. The surviving defenders rose behind him, roaring in every language of the coalition, pouring everything they had into the Carrack lines to give him a path. Elias reached the underside of the descending vessel as explosions tore the ground apart. With his final grenade, he blasted open a damaged intake port and threw himself inside. The comms went silent. The soldiers in the trench watched the giant ship hover above them, waiting. Then Elias' voice came through one last time. "Beacon active. Tell the galaxy, humans were never the joke." A second later, a bright light tore through the clouds. Far above Draxos 9, hidden beyond sensor range, an ancient human destroyer fired its last weapon, a kinetic strike launched at impossible speed. It hit the beacon dead center. The Carrack command vessel exploded like a second sun. The shockwave ripped across the battlefield. Every nearby Carrack unit froze. their coordination collapsed instantly. Without their command signal, the swarm turned wild and disorganized. Coalition reinforcements, finally arriving, jumped into orbit and opened fire on the now broken enemy fleet. Draxos 9 was saved. The civilians escaped. The Carrack advance stopped. And throughout the galaxy, one truth spread faster than light. They had mocked humans for being emotional, for being reckless, for refusing to retreat. But in the darkest hour of the war, those very flaws became the reason the galaxy survived. Later, when the memorial was built on Draxos 9, it did not honor kings, admirals, or councils. It honored one soldier. And beneath his name were the words every species would remember. When the galaxy lost hope, a human stood his ground. They laughed at humans, until one soldier proved what the galaxy should have feared all along. Agar Cheho, main of ISI script Ka. Thumbnail text, hook lines, Ya 12 scene detailed image prompts Be Banadita Whom.